Hey everybody, this is part two of the series on standing up an AD certificate authority server infrastructure. So far we've created the root CA on this one, Win 2019, non-domain joined. You can see this is just in a work group. It's called CA root. Our next step is going to be to take this server here, this Windows 2019 server, which is joined to the domain chriseve.lab, which is right here. This is the AD server. So, and we also created a CRL point so that we can easily change that if we need to in the future. That's future proofing it. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to go on this 2019 server that's domain joined, as we know. We're going to go to the dashboard. And it's a very similar process here. So add roles and features, maximize that, click next, next, let's go next. Okay, so we're going to do certificate services. This is going to come up again. We're going to see all this. That looks good. Add the features. Click next, next, next. So in this one though, we're gonna add web enrollment. Add those features. And next. Next. Looks good. I don't think we need anything else here. Next. And install. All right, so we're installing all of those features for an Active Directory certificate services certificate authority. And what that will allow us to do, this is going to be the subordinate CA. So the subordinate CA will be able to give out, it's the issuing CA, it's going to be giving out the certificates. The root CA will be part of the hierarchy, and the AD will have to trust the root and the intermediate cert. So once we have this running, we're going to configure this as an AD integrated certificate service, certificate authority, rather than before we did a standalone for the root. So I'm going to pause the recording while we wait for this to complete. Okay, that has completed. So the one thing I do want to point out is that make sure you have the name of your server correct before you do this, because you cannot change that afterwards. So make sure that's right, and make sure it's joined to the domain. So here we go. So we're done that. We're going to click close on here. And again, we can just go right up here to notifications, and let's configure our Active Directory services. So we're going to have to use a user that has enterprise admin. This is the administrator account. It does by default. Let's just take a look at that. Administrator, properties, member of, there you go. So this user has everything. Just make sure that the user is part of enterprise admins. Okay. We're going to click next. And we're going to, so the role services, we're going to pick certification authority web enrollment. Those two. Once we have that, let's click next. And since we're joining it, it's an Active Directory joined computer. We can do an enterprise CA or a standalone, either one. We're going to do enterprise. Next. Okay, so for this, now we're not going to do a root CA. We already have a root CA, so we're going to do a subordinate CA. And we're going to want to create a new private key. And again, we'll do SHA-256-2048, Microsoft Software Key Storage Provider. That's good. Next. All right. Here's where we name our CA. So what we'll call this and what we called the other one, let's check what we called the other one. I think that is right here. Chris Eve root authority, right? So that one is the root authority. Let's change this to Chris Eve issuing CA. All right, so that's the issuing certificate authority. Okay. Our next step is to request a certificate from the parent CA. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to save this certificate request to file on the target machine. And then we're going to get it back to the parent CA. We'll have to figure out how to do that in EVE-NG, but we should be able to do that. All right, next, database location. Should be good. We'll go with the default. All right, so now if we go in here, well, actually, let's finish this up. All right, so next what we need to do is come in here. Put it in the, I think the C drive, on the C drive. Yeah, there it is right there. So that's the request. All right. It's going to give us incomplete. We have to get this signed. Yeah, we know that. That's fine. So let's go back here. So here we have to get this file over to the root CA. All right, let's see what we can do here. Should be able to go to. So I know that the IP address is 10.170.10.101. We'll just try to drop it on the. Okay, and we're able to get in there. So that's good. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just take this file and drop it in there. Okay. So we've transferred that. We might as well leave these open because we're going to have to transfer the certificate back here once we get this done. Once we get it signed. All right, so let's make sure it's there. Click here. Okay, there, that came up. I did not want to go there. There it is. So the request is now on the root CA. Perfect. All right, so what we can do here is let's go into, we'll get an administrative prompt here. And we should be able to run cert util. And the goal here is to set the time of the CA. Let me type this first and I'll explain what we're doing here. So what this is doing, cert util set reg CRL period units 6. Let me hit that. Perfect. And CRL period is going to be months. So what we're doing in with these commands is we're setting the time that you have to update the CRL to 6 months rather than the default of a week, because our root CA is going to be off. So there's really no way to do that. So you're going to have to turn on that root CA and publish it every 6 months. So I mean, there's many different recommendations for this. Probably if you have an offline CA, you're going to want to do this every 3 to 12 months. Okay, so let's hit that. Make sure that works. Okay, that looks good. Happy with that. Now what we'll do is we're going to set the validity period of the certificates that this CA is signing. Set reg CA. So very similar to what we just did last time, but this we're going to set it to 10 years. So there you can see, so it was set before that to 1 year. Now it's set to 10 years. And I think we should be able to see it was set to 1 week. Now it's set to 6 months up there for the CRL. All right. So now we're going to open up the certificate authority. Well, after making those changes, let's make sure that we restart the certificate services service. So that's going to be net stop. And then we'll start it back up. Okay. All right, so now we're in the certificate services console. And what we need to do is we need to go to, we can go right here, all tasks, submit new request. So that request that we created on the intermediate, on the subordinate CA, which is on the C drive, there it is. We are now submitting that to this certification authority, to our root. All right, so now what you'll see, you go to pending requests and you'll see it right here. Here it is. And what we can do is we can issue it. We can also view attributes, extensions. But what we want to do is let's issue this. All right, so now it disappears from the pending and goes into issued. And here it is. So you can see CA root administrator requested this. And if we can open the cert, Chris Eve issuing CA, issued by Chris Eve root authority. All right. So that looks good. So next step is we want to go to, we want to copy this to a file because we're going to have to bring it back over here and make sure that this server has the certificate and the private key and everything that it, well, it has the private key. When it makes a request, it has the private key on this server. So the private key is on the server. The request is here. Sign it, bring it back. That's how certificates work. And we can get more involved in that and how all of that works. And I would like to give some demonstrations of that because I think that's a sometimes confusing to people. So, okay. So we're going to do a PKCS number 7 certificate. That's how we're going to export this and include all certificates in the certification path. Next. So now we're going to create a file name. So what we'll do is, let's call this, we'll just put this on C. I like to do that. And we'll call this the, so this is the signed cert. Okay, I'll just call it subordinate. It's going to be a P7B. All right. Perfect, perfect. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the root CA certificate plus this certificate. We're going to copy it all over. So there's the subordinate. Let's grab the root CA. So all of that should be in C, Windows, whoops, System 32 is what I'm looking for. Cert serve, cert enroll. And there's the CRL that was just published and the CA root. So let's grab those two. And we'll just move those also over here. So just make this easy. Paste them right into there. Okay, so now we have them. You can see them right here. And we're going to copy those over to this system. All right, so we're going to do this, select these three and move them over here. Okay, so at this point, we're done with the root CA. And I just closed the wrong window. So the root CA, we're done with that. We can turn that off at this point because we have everything we need. We've got the CRL, we've got the root authority, and we also have the signed certificate for the subordinate. Okay. So why don't we do that? Take this server and just shut it down. Okay, so that server is now shut down and our root private key is safe. So it's only available on that one server. It's safe. It signed this one. So if this becomes compromised, the private key on this server, then, we have to recreate a new key from that original root and put it on the CRL. Okay, so let's go here to Windows. Actually, let me stay right where I was. Let's open a new file explorer. And we're going to go to that same place on this server and add those trusted roots, the trusted root and the CRL. Okay. Let me see. So we want to go to Windows, System 32, cert SRV, cert enroll. Okay, so right now there's just this issuing CA ASP file. That's it. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the root authority and the CRL. So which one's the, let's see. That's the CRL and that's the root. Copy those. Make sure we do this right. And there we go. We have the root and the CRL. Copy there. All right. So our next step is to actually bring this signed subordinate into our CA on this box. So let's go to certificate authority. Certificate, there we go. Open that up. And you can see this is off right now. So what we want to do is we want to go to certificate authority, all tasks, and install the CA certificate. So let's find that file, which should be on the C drive. There it is, subordinate. All right, so that's been applied. And now what we'll do is we can start this. Okay, so now our next step is we're going to go to properties here, and we're going to look at the CRL and the AIA. So we have publishing to the C drive, LDAP, that should be fine. HTTP and a file, server DNS name, server DNS name. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change that from server DNS name to, I'm going to remove that. Let's remove that one. And then add, and let's see, what do we have? So we want to do HTTP rather, and this is going to be CRL. Remember that? Because we added that in DNS. Cert, enroll, and then I can insert CA name. I'll show you how to do this. Insert CA name. We're going to do the CRL name suffix, insert that, and delta CRL allowed. So that's how you can do this. And then you can just type in dot CRL. So that should be correct because remember we added this DNS entry with a CNAME that goes to casub.chriseve.lab. Okay. And what we'll do with this HTTP, we'll say include both of those. Apply that. Yes. So we don't have to do anything. Well, let me check that. Let's take a look at the authority information. So this again, same thing. Let's do the same thing. Right? We'll just the point of this is to really to make it more generic and make it so that when we do have to change these in the future, we don't have to go in and mess around with this. We'll just have the right, we'll do this the correct way. All right, so I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to add it. And this is going to be HTTP CRL cert enroll. All right, so this will be, so server DNS name is still in here. This is interesting. I don't know if I want to do this. So yeah, that might not be something, I'll have to look at that. CA name and certificate name. Do we have certificate name? Yep, there it is. .crt. I think we want to include that. Apply. Yes. Okay. So this has been a pretty long video, but I'd like to thank you for watching because now that's the next step is going to be to actually issue some certificates from this certificate authority. Thank you very much.